Hi, and welcome back to another episode of
The Tao of Aromatica.
And this is Karen Kane. And Karen and I have been with you for the last several episodes where we talked about tea and everything that was wonderful about tea. That was episode 1.
Almost everything.
Almost everything. Episode 2, we covered equipment and all the wonderful different types of equipment and materials you can use for cups and teapots and things of that nature, and infusers. And in episode 3, we talked about blending in small batches and all the wonderful different types of blends that already exist at Aromatica, but also the different types of blends that you might come and talk to them about doing yourself if you have some flavors that you like. But today we're going to do something kind of exciting.
Cooking with tea.
Cooking with tea. So that's a very enticing subject, I think. And I would want to know, I'm sure our audience would, who would ever have thought of cooking with tea? Where did that start?
When we first started blending tea, we started with blending for Appledorn's, the tea that you sampled.
Oh, yeah, that was beautiful.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason that we chose the elements that we did to bring that tea blend together was we wanted to incorporate things that would be used in baking, because we wanted a tea that would be the perfect pairing for baked goods. So we used vanilla and ginger and cinnamon, and of course it worked really well. It's a great tea and it's wonderful when paired with desserts. Mm-hmm. So when you think about having stuff that you pair with tea, it's pretty easy to say, well, what happens if I put the tea into something? And so that's sort of where we began. My husband, Kim, is a tremendously creative and fabulous cook. And so we began with putting tea in things. One of the first things that Kim made was a glaze, a honey glaze, that he took tea and put into cold honey, warmed up, let the tea flavors come out into the honey. Then he warmed it again to strain the leaves out. Then the glaze was used on barbecue. And so he had a fennel flavored glaze for pork and a raspberry flavored glaze for chicken. And it was all very simple, very healthy stuff because he just used honey and tea.
Oh, that sounds interesting. And so I guess our viewers might want to know what the process is. How do you actually cook with tea?
Okay, so there are 2 basic ways that you can incorporate tea into food. One is infusion. So we spend a great deal of time talking about different mechanical ways to get tea into water. When you do an infusion, you're going to use any of those mechanisms, but you're going to either infuse in oil, in water, or potentially in milk. If you have an infusion of liquid, you then will replace the liquid required in the recipe by the infusion, which now carries the flavor of the tea into the recipe. If you're using tea for something that doesn't require much volume of liquid, you're going to want to do a dry grind type blend. So if I were making shortbread, I wouldn't want to heat my butter, put the tea flavor into the butter, strain it out, cool it again, because it's got to be cold to make the shortbread. So I would grind my flavored tea and incorporate the dry grind in with the flour.
So it's kind of like a spice almost at that point.
It is.
Yeah.
And a lot of teas are herbs. One of the things we're going to do today is look at how a single tea like lemon myrtle can be used either dry or wet in sweets or in savory. So you have one thing in your cupboard that you can drink as tea, but you can also use it in a variety of recipes.
So, well, what kind of foods work really well in your experience with cooking with tea?
You can use tea to infuse pretty well any grain. So you can use it in quinoa, you can use it in rice. Obviously, in that fashion, it works well to incorporate it in the water that you're making your quinoa or your rice with. Mm-hmm. And then the flavor carries through into the rice. So pretty well any grain can be used with an infusion. With proteins, it's typically a braise or a rub. And in cakes and sweets and such, it could either be a dry grind or an infusion. But you can put it in cakes, you can put it in muffins is a big deal. You can do it in icing. Just about any food at all, you can incorporate tea.
You've talked about sweets and savories. Is there a better use of tea, or are there different ways they work, or is it just basically the dry versus wet that you've already sort of described?
It's primarily the dry versus wet. Just a few weeks ago, Cam, who owns Cultivate Cafe down here at Minter's, said he had a dinner party to do, and we'd been talking to him about cooking with tea, and he came and picked Kim's brain about what flavors would go in a great creme brulee. He had a private dinner, I think, that he was catering, and he wanted to really knock their socks off. So they came up with a great idea, and the next thing I saw was some lovely scones that he gave us as a thank you for helping him to do something creative.
Okay. So once you've decided on the particular food that you want to cook with tea, how do you actually get the tea now into the recipe?
Typically, you're going to use a little more concentration of tea than you would if you're just drinking the
Right.
tea. But if you'd like, we could move to making some custard, and I can show you.
I love custard. Who doesn't like pudding?
Okay.
All right.
So making the tea, I'm going to use the tea sacks that we talked about before. So they're gusseted, and that's going to enable the tea to get flavor into the milk in order to make the custard. I'm using Bird's custard, which is an old English favorite. It's basically egg yolk for thickening and some cornstarch. And I'm not going to use the requisite sugar that they suggest for the custard. So all I did was put the tea in a bag because I don't want to have to filter out the milk. Now I'm going to put this in hot milk. So we have hot milk. You probably see the steam come up. This is going to sit for approximately 15 minutes so that we have the flavors imbuing the milk richly. And then I'll take it the next step. Normally you would make the custard with cold milk and heat it up. Having had the tea in it already, it'll be cooled a little bit. We'll incorporate the Bird's custard, and then we'll have some custard.
Okay, this is all really interesting, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
We're in the modern world. Sure, you can cook with tea, but why bother? I can go to the store. I can get flavors from anything.
Yeah.
Why bother? Why
How
should
much
I?
synthetic crap do you want to eat?
I don't know. How much is there?
Lots.
Is there lots?
Yeah.
And that's not good for you, right?
Right.
Right.
So tea is a very healthy, natural way to get flavors in. One of the first commercial events that we catered with using tea was here at the gardens, and Kim did the glazed honey. I happen to like using tea in a lot of savory things. So we took butter and chopped up some garlic and some onions. I put in lapsang souchong, which is a tea that is historically from ancient, where tea drying sheds were burned by an invading army, and the tea that was left behind was smoked. So lapsang souchong is it's actually smoked over wood to this day. I took the tea, put it in.
Do they have the invading armies have to come in to do it as well, or?
I'm not sure. Chilliwack might.
Sorry. Yeah, no, we're past the invading armies.
Okay, past the invading armies, back to the lapsang. So I used the oil and the tea to fry prawns in, fresh prawns. And so what we had was smoked prawns with no chemicals, all the goodness.
Yeah, it's kind of like barbecue almost, but without having that hassle. And if it's wintertime, then...
And no carcinogens.
That totally makes sense. I understand why you'd want to consider using tea in your recipes because it's healthy. Do you have something that you've done recently that you want to share?
I sure do. On the website, you will see a recipe, and it might have walnut green tea in it, or it might have snowflake. These are both are award-winning North American Championship teas. This recipe, and I'm going to read it slowly. It takes whole steel-cut oats, pretty healthy, hickory almonds, dried cranberries, honey, coconut oil. There is nothing there that isn't healthy.
Oh,
this is basically vegan. Oat bran, chopped walnuts, and tea, and you put it all together. I've done this at Decades for a demo for them about cooking with tea, and then put it on a cookie pan and put it in the oven and bake it. You pull it out of the oven, you cut it while it's still hot, you've got essentially squares. And everybody's heard of peanut brittle. This is tea nut brittle.
Sounds like something for the holiday season almost.
Yeah.
Sounds fantastic. So we'll have that recipe available on your website.
Yep.
Perfect. So now, what is that your favorite recipe or?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I don't get to cutting it while it's still hot, I've got great granola.
So obviously, in this episode, there's just absolutely no way we can talk about all the different types of recipes, because there's going to be lots.
Yep.
Maybe in some future episodes, we'll maybe specialize in cooking with tea. But for now, what I've got my mind on is that delicious custard. Are we going to be able to have a taste of that soon?
Yeah, let me go cook.
Right on. Okay, Karen. Karen, they're waiting.
I'm coming.
How's the pudding coming, Karen?
You are going to be so amazed.
Sorry, I called it custard pudding. Oh, this looks good.
Smells even better.
Oh my gosh, yeah. What a treat. What a treat. Now that looks nuclear hot.
Oh, it's pretty warm.
Yeah. Okay. Delicious. So now how long does this actually take to cook? Beginning to end?
Beginning to end, you're probably looking at 15 minutes.
15 minutes? So that's pretty fast.
Yep.
And we had the recipe on our screen while you were cooking, so the audience can make this at home themselves. But what the audience can't do right now, they can't taste it like I'm going to be able to once you get back. Okay, Karen, I'm not going to wait any longer. This is smelling amazing. Okay. Well, let's do a toast here. And taste. Oh, that's nice. That's really nice.
Nutcracker custard.
Karen, thank you so much for sharing with us this recipe. Any other thoughts about cooking with food that you want to share with the audience?
Sure. We actually post recipes that we develop and that other people develop on Facebook. Sometimes we send them out in our email. We have a website with 17 pages of recipes. Be part of the process. We'd love to be collaborative with you. We're happy to share what we have, and we just welcome everybody to join in the Tao of Aromatica.
The Tao of Aromatica. Thank you so much for joining us this season, and till we meet again.